Okay, so my name's Kieran.
My name is Alex.
I'm Dustin.
I'm Dax.
And I'm Alberta. And we're going to be talking to you today about Value Line Publishing, case number 10. To begin with, we will look at the retail building supply industry that we will be looking at today. When we look at the industry, we will be mainly focusing on Lowe's and Home Depot. But first, let's take a look at what the overall general condition of the market at the time in 2001. It was valued to be at $175 billion in the industry. Now, we got to take into consideration some of the things that contribute to this huge dollar amount, because we have to think about back in that time, there was a small economic recession taking part in the United States. Part of the reason that a lot of money was in the market was due to the reason of a booming housing economy. Now, this industry sells supplies mainly for home improvements and other repairs and maintenance. So if the housing economy was booming and sales were at this rate, we're going down from 7.5 to 4.2%. So even though sales growth were declining, the value of the industry was still in good condition. And to look at within the industry, we can see that there are three main sources of revenue that come from the type of stores that make up the industry. And 51% of the sales come from the large format, the warehouse stores like Lowe's and Home Depot, but 34% of the sales come from lumber yards and 15% come from your basic other hardware stores. And now within the industry, we have Lowe's and Home Depot owning 1/3 of total sales. Warehouse stores like Lowe's and Home Depot have become the dominant power. Other independent hardware stores during the time were struggling to survive and needed to move to other places like big shopping malls to attract customers. And now we will take a look at how the dominance of Home Depot and Lowe's was going into expanding and acquiring other retailers.
Okay, so I just want to take a look at the future growth opportunities for both Home Depot and Lowe's. There's 5 major ways that each company can expand and grow in the future. First is through acquisitions and consolidations. Second is tapping into professional markets. Third is going international and expanding into international markets. Fourth, alternative retail formats. And fifth, alternative products. So to delve in a little deeper on each one of those things, acquisitions and consolidations. In 1999, Lowe's acquired the 38-store warehouse format Eagle Hardware. And within the same time frame, Home Depot acquired Apex Supply, Georgia Lighting, Anything Supply, and Your Other Warehouse. And this is important because when you factor in competition and you have 2 large companies like Home Depot and Lowe's, as one grows and starts consolidating and acquiring different companies, it's essential for the other competitor to do the same so they don't lose market share and potentially so they can gain market share going forward. International expansion is key. Home Depot acquired the Canadian home improvement retailer Aikenhead in 1994. The $12.5 billion home improvement market in Mexico, they also tapped into. They acquired companies Total Home and Del Norte, which are 2 of the bigger industry leaders in Mexico. By 2001, Lowe's had no international presence at this time, which is a great opportunity for them to grow going forward. Alternative retail formats, they both maintain online stores specifically targeted at professional customers, and they have sections like Accent and Style, which offers decorating and design tips to help people figure out exactly how they want their stuff customized. They also have alternative products. Installation services are a really big industry for Home Depot. This industry was valued at $3 billion for Home Depot in 2001. Some things that they do is they install flooring, they redesign bathrooms, install doors, water heaters, etc. This is also another good opportunity for both companies to grow in as far as having professional installation services that customer needs.
All right, so now I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the financial portion of Home Depot and Lowe's. First, we're going to take a look at Carrie's assumptions and forecasted information about Home Depot. When looking at Carrie's assumptions, we really want to look at the sensitivity of how these ratios change if we were to increase them by 1%, decrease them by 1%. See if she were to be off, how sensitive that would be to her analysis. When looking at the different ratios, there's two that really stood out to us. It's going to be the gross margin sensitivity as well as the operating expense sensitivity. When looking at the gross margin, if it were to decrease by just only 2%, the cost of capital is going to be greater than the return on capital. So in a sense, if she were to be off by 2%, then Home Depot would be in essence losing a lot of money on their gross operations or their gross margins. As well, looking into the operating expense, you're going to see if they were to increase, if they have some sort of increase in expenses by 2% as well, it's going to do the same. It's going to have the same effect. And we really bring up these two because we believe that she was a little optimistic in some of her forecasting. So therefore, we bring up these two. When looking at her financial analysis, she really focused in on that when looking at Home Depot. You can look at the gross margin as it says in the historical data that over the past 5 years, 1997, excuse me, 2001, sorry, it just shows a historical increase over time. So that if you look back at her data she put in from 2001 to 2006, that's just going to increase over time, not really taking into effect what gross margin really is, which has to deal with sales and cost of goods sold. So we believe that with Lowe's coming into the market with Home Depot, that gross margin is going to be affected a lot. We also believe that operation expense is going to be a lot because with Home Depot and Lowe's, they both didn't have competition within the rural area for Lowe's and in the metropolitan area for Home Depot. So when Home Depot faces this new competition within their market, they're going to have to decrease their everyday low prices, and also they're going to have to increase their marketing somehow just so they can maintain some market share within the industry. So now we're going to be talking about our assumptions for Home Depot. When looking at the decrease in everyday low prices, that's going to affect the gross margins specifically. So we believe that there's going to be a decrease in gross margin by 0.5% for 3 years. We believe this because they're going to have to figure out the correct pricing to compete with Lowe's. We think over that 3-year time, they should be able to come up with their pricing to where it competes with Lowe's. And then in 2004 and 2005, they'll continue to keep those prices very steady because they're going to have to, of course, continue to compete with Lowe's. They're not just going to lead the market. And also, we believe that there's going to be an increased cost in operations. So with this, we kind of took a more aggressive route. We believe that in 2002 and 2003, that they're going to increase by 1% in those 2 years, and then it's going to decrease back to Carrie's forecasted assumptions. So we believe it's going to increase by 2% in 2 years because they're going to want to get out to their consumers, to their customers and say, hey, we have these low prices. We understand that there's new Lowe's coming in with those lower prices, but we have those same exact prices. And they're also going to want to reiterate to their customers why they're different from Lowe's and kind of just keep their market share. They're just going to be fighting to keep that market share. So we believe it's going to be a big effort for marketing blasting. And so they're going to do that marketing quickly.
All right, so I'm going to go over Lowe's financial analysis. This is between 1998 to 2001. So this is historical data. We're just going to analyze it, kind of get a groundwork for our assumptions in the future and our forecast. So first of all, sales growth in new stores is going up between 1998 and 2001. It goes from 9% to 14.5%. And this is just them looking at new markets. So in the future, around 2001, 2002, they start to look to move towards metropolitan areas. But that's why the increase starts getting up there around the end. Also, sales for existing stores decreases from 10.8% to 2.9%. And this is kind of with the industry. There's a lot of recessionary activity going on. We actually have a quote from Alan Greenspan, who was the Federal Reserve Chairman at the time in 1998. He said that it starts of single-family houses surged to 1.27 million units in 1998, the highest level since the late 1970s. So as you can tell, it spikes 10.8% to 17.3%, and that was just with the activity in the economy, so strictly from that. Sales growth decreases from 20.8% to 17.7%, and this is due to the industry as well and recessionary environment that's going on. As you can tell, it just decreases around the end, and that's with the industry and everything going on. The gross margin increases from 26.9% to 28.8%, and this is just due to their lowered operating costs and their lowered inventory costs. It just shows that the company is beginning to become more efficient as well. So that'll play into our forecasting in the future.
Okay, and I'm going to be talking about Home Depot's historical data, specifically 1998 through 2001, the same as Lowe's. So as we can see, the sales growth in new stores has decreased over 5% over the last 5 years. And we believe that this is due to the economy. As Al said, this is a recessionary time period. Things are going on in America, and we just believe that this is kind of an economic factor that the sales, the growth in new stores is going to be affected by this. Their sales for existing stores is also going to see a decrease over the last 5 years. And actually in 2000 and 2001, they experienced negative growth for existing stores. We kind of believe that this was due to the fact that Lowe's was kind of coming into the market within the last couple of years. That's kind of offset Home Depot's market share with their existing stores. Lowe's is going to come in and steal some of those sales and kind of establish a good presence within the last couple of years. And sales growth, it also sees a large decrease over the past 5 years. Like I said before, the economic factors are going to play a big effect into this. Also, it could be attributed to the return on equity that Home Depot has seen over the past couple of years. It's seen a steady decline since 1999. This may be caused by sales growth, a decrease in sales growth. This return on equity might be caused by it. Or it could be caused by increasing operating costs. These operating costs are going to be increased due to the higher occupancy of their new stores that they're going to be opening, hence their growth in new stores declining. And they're increasing energy costs, which is, again, an economic factor that comes into play. Home Depot's sales per store actually declines over the last 5 years as well. That is evident in all of the growth rates, as you can see on the PowerPoint. As if the store sales are not adhering to their standards and Home Depot standards, then all the growth rates are going to be skewed and they're not going to experience much growth at all. Home Depot's asset and capital turnover ratios are also a good measure of operating performance for Home Depot. They seem stagnant over the last 5 years, and there's no big indications of them selling off their big assets or their big stores in recent years. So we believe that gross margin is going to stay relatively stable over the next over the last 5 years, and kind of see the same kind of trend over the next 5.
So we're going to do the 5-year forecast between Lowe's and Home Depot. Basically, we're going to go through each section back and forth between Lowe's and Home Depot to compare and contrast so we can make an effective judgment on the company in the future. So what we predict in the future for growth in new stores is it's going to go from 16.5% to 14.5% in 2006. This is actually a good ratio. I know it is declining, but this is due to, as the company expands, it's going to be difficult to expand more. So basically, it's declining at a steady rate, which is actually a positive thing for the industry.
And if you compare that to actually Home Depot's decline, and you can see the growth in new stores, we forecasted that Home Depot is going to decline about 10% over the next 5 years. Lowe's is declining at a less rate than Home Depot, and Home Depot, like I said, is going to see a rapid decline compared to Lowe's. That's just purely based on because Home Depot has no plans currently to open any new stores or expand into new markets compared to Lowe's, where they have that opportunity to steal some of Home Depot's market share in the future.
So next we're going to go into sales growth for existing stores. We predicted for Lowe's it's going to start at 3% and go to 3.1% in 2006. It's pretty stagnant, consistent for the 5 years in the future. And this is due to, they're focused on expanding in new stores. They're not really focused on their existing stores at this time because they're moving into metropolitan areas. And their business model is going to stay the same. So that just gives the consistent numbers, which is a good thing for the company.
And Home Depot's sales growth for existing stores, as Al said, that Lowe's is going to be pretty stagnant over the next 5 years. And we believe that Home Depot is going to see a slight increase by 1% from 2002 to 2003. And then it's going to double in 2004, up from 2003 to 8.3%. We believe that it's kind of going to do this because it's going to be needing to focus on its existing stores and its current market that it already has, rather than its new stores that it's going to be planning on opening in the future. As Lowe's comes into play a big factor in the industry, Home Depot really needs to establish its dominance in its existing stores and its everyday low prices, as it has done evidently in the past.
So the next thing we're going to look into is total sales growth for the company. In 2002, we're predicting 19.5%, and then within 5 years, 2006, it's 17.6%. And it is declining, but we don't think this is a bad thing. As it expands to new areas and new markets, the total sum of their sales is going to go down in a ratio standpoint. And we don't think it's a bad thing unless they choose to innovate, then the sales would go up. But we think as long as they keep their business model the same, it should have a constant good ratio that's slightly declining.
And if you compare this to Home Depot's total sales growth, you can see that Home Depot is, we forecasted that they're going to see and experience a more of a rapid decline compared to Lowe's in total sales growth. We kind of believe that it's kind of taper off and decline in the next 2 to 3 years as Lowe's steps in to produce that competition. However, in 2005 and 2006, after 4 or 5 years, we believe that with Home Depot trying to compete with Lowe's, offering better prices because of Lowe's is lower prices as it has of now, that loyal customer base of Home Depot is going to come back, and they're going to focus on those existing stores like I've mentioned before, and their gross margin is going to see and their total sales growth, is going to see a little taper off towards the end.
So lastly, we're going to hit on gross margin. So gross margin for Lowe's, it's starting at 29.5%, and it's going to go up to 33.2%. We believe this because their sales is going to go up while they're keeping their low inventory costs and their low operating costs as well. I think that this just shows the company is going to become more efficient than it already is. In the past 5 years, they became more efficient. I think they're going to continue to do so. And also, they're taking over more market share, even in the market that Home Depot already operates in. So they're moving in the metropolitan areas, and as they move in there, I think they're going to take up more market share and have a better gross margin as well.
So with that being said, the competition is going to increase with Lowe's and Home Depot. That's going to play an effect Home Depot's gross margin over the next 5 years. We believe that it's going to see a decline in the next 2 to 3 years, but also come back as that loyal customer base comes back and kicks back in, and then the competition heats up. That Home Depot is going to have to try different strategies to get the customer base back and try and increase that market share once again.
All right. And to wrap up, going with what the rest of my teammates have said, we saw Home Depot's forecast from Carey mainly based on historical performance. Now, at the time the forecasts were made, Home Depot, their operating performance was substantially well, you know, a big leader in the market, and it's not against someone to pick what kind of forecasting method they're going to use, but in this case, with Carey, we believe that she was being a little optimistic for her forecast in Home Depot. Also, we believe that in her forecast, she was not giving enough consideration into Lowe's and the threat of the competition that they will bring in to these new urban areas. You know, with more a focus on Lowe's opening stores in New York and other cities with populations of greater than 500,000 people. So, also, Lowe's has been outpacing Home Depot in comparison to store sales. So, be on the lookout for Home Depot to have a more aggressive pricing strategy and increase promotional and marketing costs. For Lowe's, we have already seen positive feedback, and having them gain market share in the appliance industry and being the transition into metropolitan urban areas with greater populations that will surely, in our opinion, take away from Home Depot sales. Again, with margins expanding for Lowe's, we could attribute that to some of their lower inventory, and which is driven down COGS by a substantial amount, and the product mix development, which has increased sales. And staying along with the sales aspect, we have seen positive sales in years for Lowe's, and we expect that to come for years to come.
So taking everything into account, it's essential for Lowe's to establish their niche within the industry and maximize their potential. Product differentiation is going to play an important role in competition. Lowe's must implement a strong corporate strategy focusing on better customer service, purchasing new markets, or penetrating new markets, I apologize, and offering lower prices. This approach will ensure a stronger market share and company stability going forward.